traditional Moroccan welcome to the David Eagle podcast. Last week and the week before, Ellie, my wife, and myself. Ellie is my wife, by the way. I'm not saying Ellie, my wife, and myself, just in case you're thinking, my goodness, has there been some news? Have you and Ellie got divorced, but you're still keeping up amicable relations, despite the fact that you've got a new wife? No, that's not the case. I'm sure you probably weren't thinking it was. I didn't really need to heckle myself. My goodness, we've got off to a great start here, haven't we? I've heckled myself within the first sentence of the David Eagle podcast this week. This is the podcast for the 15th to the 21st of January. Ellie and I were on holiday in Morocco a couple of weeks ago, and we brought you clips, stories and experiences from our Moroccan exploits on last week's podcast and the podcast the week before. But when we went to the women's cooperative that we mentioned on one of the podcast episodes, when we entered the place, we were greeted by what they said was a welcome song, a traditional native Moroccan welcome song. I say what they said was. I'm not suggesting they were lying. I'm just saying that's what they told us. I'm not saying, well, they told us it was, but it could be anything. I mean, for all we know, you can't really, I don't think the Berber language isn't really very well known. So I'm not sure if you can really put that into Google Translate and ask what was said. And they know when we walk through the door, and we are clearly white English people, they know we're not going to understand what they're saying. So maybe they'd like to just play a little joke on us. And maybe it's actually a profane-laden insult. They just do it because they can get away with it. And they dare each other. When he walks in through the door, do the song, but do jokes about him having a really small penis. And that's what happens. We walk through the door, and they go, oh, he's blind as well. He's blind. He's walking through the door, make jokes about him being blind and having a small penis. And then at the end of it, they just go, yes, that was a traditional native Moroccan song there. And we're kind of very respectful and go, oh, that was very good. So I don't know. If we have any people who can speak the Berber language, let me know if they were casting aspersions on my genitalia or anything else. But I'm going to assume it was a traditional Moroccan song. To welcome you to the David Eagle podcast that we're now 2 minutes into. And yeah, I was going to say it's a shorter podcast this week. I think I've got about 45 minutes worth of content, but I've spent that long doing this build-up to the show, and goodness knows how long it's going to go on for, that you might be listening going, 45 minutes, David, it's an hour and a half. In which case you'll know, if it is an hour and a half, that this is a 45-minute introduction to a 45-minute podcast. But I don't think it will be. We're going to move on now. Yes, so this is the David Eagle podcast for the week of the 15th to the 21st of January. Enjoy. January the 15th. Effingham Street news update. If this keeps happening, we may need a jingle. Oh, we have a jingle. Effingham Street. So Ellie, with her job that she is doing, because it is based on the site of the old Sheffield gas board, because it's been taken over by a big music hub in Sheffield, but one of the things they want to do is preserve the history of what the building used to be. And so she's doing a bit of research, and there's going to be various displays so you can sort of see the continuation of the building. So she is currently reading a
pamphlet called Sheffield Gas Undertaking 1818 to 1949, which was printed in 1979 by the East Midlands Gas Board.
So there you go. We said we were going to be staying clear of more sexualised content, and now we've done that, my friends, because we're giving you the history of Sheffield's gas board between 1879 and 1949. So strap yourselves in, my friends. But I say we're staying clear of sexualised content is I've never heard of Effingham Street. Apparently, Effingham Street is sort of like an 8-minute drive away.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
8-minute drive away. I've never heard of Effingham Street, and now it's the usual thing of when you hear something, you see it again. And a couple of pages in to the gas board pamphlet, she's reading it, and she says, it's not your thing, really, in a way.
No, so I'm reading through everything to find the bits that are relevant to our building.
But then Ellie Skinner reads,
Chapter 3, Private Enterprise Prevails. One of the first actions of the newly established board was to authorise a rearrangement of the mains based on the extension of the Effingham Street site.
So there it is, Effingham Street. We've never heard of it. It gets a mention, but then it's followed by...
including the erection.
And then it moves on to the next page. So we've not turned over yet. So we don't know what the erection of what.
Including the erection of 2 large gas holders.
Hang on. Is that someone's job? That's their Christmas treat. They're vegans. So they don't get a turkey like everybody else. So so the erection of 2 gas holders.
2 large gas holders. The disused gas holder at Neep's End was sold to the contractor of the Effingham Street development.
And I wonder how they got that deal through. My goodness.
Sure, it's a very hands-on exchange.
We'll get more Effingham Street news perhaps later on. While we're doing updates,
yes.
One thing that we haven't mentioned, and we hope you enjoyed our Moroccan exploits. On the flight back, we reunited. We were in exactly the same seats as we were.
Same seats, same plane as well.
Same plane, which is rather disconcerting because that plane was developing a bit of a squeak
right above my head, which was really annoying.
Well, I would say worrying more than annoying. We forgot to say as well, on our journey there, I did try to do a little recording on the plane, but unfortunately I was speaking so quietly that nothing that I said really came out. I was trying to keep my voice down because obviously it's a bit weird just talking on the plane. But the reason I put the recorder on was because our landing, we got an announcement came from the captain and he said, due to visibility, not being able to see, but I don't know why I'm describing what visibility is, just in case. There will be some big words in the David Eagle podcast.
Let's have the blind man explain visibility to us, shall we?
He said, due to visibility issues, potentially we won't be able to land in Marrakesh. We're going to see what we can do, but we may have to land.
Circle for a bit.
We're going to circle for a bit, and then we might have to land somewhere else. So, had you noticed the squeak before that point?
I had noticed a little bit of a squeak, which is why I had my headphones in, just to sort of block out.
Which is weird, because what she was watching on the TV, when she put her headphones in, was Sooty and Sweep.
Oh, God.
Well, I like the fact I was gonna take that out. So I thought that wasn't very good. And then you've proceeded to laugh quite heartily. So maybe it'll be left in. I hadn't noticed the squeak at that point, but then when I took my headphones off, and then I noticed that it was squeaking, and I thought this is slightly concerning now because I don't know whether that squeak is obviously it's meant to be. That's just developed, and now we're being told that we can't land, and we're circling.
You were narrating the landing as it was happening,
but I was trying to keep my voice down. It's probably quite disconcerting for people anyway, with the squeak and the turbulence and the fact that we potentially can't land where we're meant to land and goodness knows what's going to happen without someone then narrating what's happening.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, me keeping my voice down meant that it didn't work. So I was quite frustrated because it was quite dramatic. And I
could tell it was somewhat dramatic, but I could not. I was sat next to you and I couldn't hear what you were bloody saying. So I probably
looked more circumspect, whispering into my phone. Anyway, so we did. Obviously, we landed and all was well. But on the way back, we were sat next to the same person, so we were able to reveal to her. I hadn't known my destination until she revealed it, and she was very apologetic.
Yeah.
Then we had a very strange experience with one of the stewards.
Yeah, a little strange interaction. So as we were flying...
Oh, yeah, no, I said experience.
He came over and he was holding a little bottle of water and he was trying to get your attention. Obviously, you can't see him. So I was like, David, he wants you. And he... He said, excuse me, sir, are you flying with your grandparents today? And we were like, no. Oh, right, because I was looking for a ginger. And then he kind of walked off. For like 25 minutes, we were like, I wonder why.
We were trying to work out why he might be. Yeah. I didn't realise it was a steward at first.
You didn't know.
So I thought maybe it was just a bit of a prank that someone was like, oh, dare you to go over there and
pick a random guy.
And ask the grandpa because you're looking for a ginger. But I think what it was...
As we were disembarking, he was at the door and I said, oh, did you find your gingers? Your gingers? And he said, oh, yeah, we did. And what I think had happened, it was during the drink service. And I think there was a family that had not booked seats together. So the grandparents had bought drinks and he was then being made to deliver them up the plane to the different people, but he wasn't given
any other instructions.
It was just like, look for a ginger lad who's my grandson. As we were flying around this storm, on the other side of our aisle, somebody just shouted, sick bags, send your sick bags. The Scouse woman next to you was looking for some, and all of them were just sort of posted in the bit in front of you. So I handed them along. And then, unfortunately, I witnessed a woman throwing up into a sick bag. And then she had to, because that one was then full, she passed it to the other woman who'd been shouting, who I didn't think she knew, but it turns out we saw when they came back, because they were on the flight back with us, that they were friends.
Maybe they weren't friends before that point.
Maybe they weren't.
Maybe they were strangers, because that's how the seat allocations often work. And so maybe once you've held someone sick, you either absolutely hate them or you've bonded so much that they became friends.
The plane had rallied and sent a lot of bags, which was helpful because she was just going and going and going. I get motion and travel sickness sometimes, so I had to try and block it out.
Because it is that thing of if you see somebody else being sick, then you're more likely to
Yeah.
be sick. Like, I hope, by the way, listening to the podcast, when I told the story about farting and then accidentally shitting myself, I hope that wasn't a vicarious thing for you, listeners. It's going to be quite interesting.
There wasn't a sharting domino effect going on across the country.
I wasn't aware that there was a word for it.
Oh, yeah.
That it happens so often.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me feel a little bit better then. If there's
it's
a word
well-known
for
thing.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
sharting. Yeah.
Sharting, I don't really like that, but anyway.
Well, it'd be
For shitting.
Yeah, which doesn't really work. This valiant friend then had a plastic bag. That
Shatulence.
Lovely.
That's a better name for it, isn't it? Shatulence.
Yes, that's very good. This valiant friend was then holding a plastic bag of about 3 bags of sick, which she then, as they got off the plane, just left on the seat for the staff to deal with, which I was less impressed with.
My other flight story is we once shared a flight with the Netherlands football manager and the manager of Man United, Louis van Gaal. Louis van Gaal was on the plane. I just said, "Excuse me, are you Louis van Gaal?" And he said, "You are blind, and even you know who I am." So he was very and we had a little bit of a chat. But then I think I tried to get him, because when we were doing the Young'uns podcast, I think I tried to get him to do a little jingle or something. And it was then that he was like, no. He didn't want his voice recorded, I think is what he was saying, but I didn't quite understand that.
Right.
And then we also, at the same time, Sean offered him a fig roll. I don't know, we had some fig rolls on us. I probably didn't need to say we had some fig rolls on us. That would be quite odd. Do you want a fig roll? If we didn't have anything. I haven't got one, I'm afraid. Yes, well, we'll get you one. Sean's would you like a fig roll? And he must have thought we were asking, are we okay to record or something? He must have assumed that the word fig roll meant recorder. Because he's not English, obviously.
Yeah.
So he must have thought that fig roll's recorder. So he said, no, please, turn off the fig roll. Turn off the fig roll. But he was still really nice, and but I didn't understand what turn off the fig roll means. So I just kept recording. But he was very smiley and very nice. Another strange thing that happened on the plane on the way back, there was a message from the captain who said, we do have somebody on board with a nut allergy. So if you could not have nuts, that would be wonderful. Or not eat nuts.
Yeah.
Rather having nuts. All the men were tightly crossing their legs.
Defensively.
Tightening those belts. As we walked through the market of Marrakesh, everywhere you went on the streets of Marrakesh, there were people selling nuts.
And particularly peanuts as well.
There was a man who was trying to steal that particular item, and I heard him shouting at the wannabe robber, "Get your hands off my peanuts!" I couldn't think of it. I was trying to think of another name for nut. Legume?
Yes, legume.
I could have said there was a man who's trying to... I wanted to avoid saying hands and nut.
Yes.
But anyway, we got there. January the 16th. A very quick one today because we are about to set off. It's Friday morning. We are about to set off on our singing weekend. Myself, Michael and Sean from the Young'uns, we and 50 other people are taking over a youth hostel. We do warn people. We book the hostel out. It's not a hostile takeover. We haven't been inspired by Trump and we'll just go in. We take over a youth hostel. We do a weekend of singing and workshops and presentations. We've had some very interesting people, though, at our singing weekends. Some celebrities, including Miles Jupp. We should, by the way, mention Miles because quite an interesting thing. If you remember from years ago now, I was telling a story where we were listening to BBC Six Music and Miles Jupp was choosing some of his favourite songs, and then all of a sudden, he introduced all the other songs and explained what it meant to them. This is the one song that he didn't, and he played Be the Man from the Young'uns, never explaining why, and then it just sort of then Stephen Flamak's voice came on and just said, well, that was the choice of Miles Jupp, concluding with Be the Man, the Young'uns, which is really strange because he did an introduction for all the others, Rolling Stones, National Express, The Divine Comedy. He did a bit of an introduction for each one, but never said anything about this song. We now know that apparently they did, but for time reasons it was edited out. And then he came to our gig in Bristol, and we met up with him afterwards, and a lovely man. And then since then, we've become good friends with Miles.
He stayed in our sitting room and he's wandered around in his pants.
There you go. And it's really strange as well because I get invited to the BBC Christmas parties. So I've seen him a few times at those. So, because that's another thing. I have a show on Radio 4, which you can listen to if you'd like to hear me, but with a lot of quality control exercised and a lot of editing done. Rather than this rambling stuff. This is my idea of a quick one.
We've not really got that down, have we?
We shouldn't really be bragging about that kind of thing yet. Then, after he'd come to a few of the Young'uns gigs, he was then interested in our singing weekends. And there's a mix of people who obviously know who he is. But then there was one person, Ruth, who comes on our singing weekends. She does not have a TV and isn't really clued up with what's going on in the world. As in, like, in terms of entertainment and that kind of thing.
She doesn't keep track of that. She's got a radio and she's got a loom. She doesn't need anything else.
She came up to Miles and introduced herself, and obviously knowing no idea who he was, and said, "Oh, hello, I'm Ruth. I don't think you've ever been on one of these weekends, have you?" He's like, "Oh, no, I haven't." He says, "Well, let me just say this to you, Miles. I hope you've got a good sense of humour, because you're certainly going to need one this weekend." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'll try."
He liked it so much he came back another year and brought a friend.
Oh, yes, he brought a friend with him, Justin Edwards, who has played all sorts of people. Who would you say he's most famous for playing?
Probably for his role in The Thick of It. He's been in all sorts of things. He's been in The Paradise, Endeavour, The Trip, Veep, Black Mirror.
So that's quite an interesting little development, because I was just thinking for the listeners, the last time we talked about Miles was the fact that he just played us on the radio with no context.
Out that he knew about you.
Now we've become good friends. So much so that his is the voice that you can hear doing the credits on my BBC Radio 4 show, See No Eagle.
Yes.
I think for a lot of the weekend, there were a few people who didn't know who he was and still didn't know who he was throughout the whole thing. And I think they were a bit confused. When we went to the pub on the Saturday afternoon, there were a few people in there who were a bit drunk who weren't part of our group. And then they saw Miles and immediately stood up and really excitedly just shouted, "Balamori! Balamori! Archie! Balamori!"
He very politely said, "Well, I have done other things."
Yeah, but the people in the singing weekend had no idea why, when this man who they didn't know and just assumed he was just a civilian singing weekender, like
another one of them.
Another one of them. Suddenly, as he goes into the pub, imagine if you had no idea who he is, and then all of a sudden he's greeted like a celebrity in the pub, but people aren't saying his name, they're just shouting Balamori, Balamori, Archie, Balamori.
And also, these are the singing weekenders, some of them will not be of an age to know
what Balamori is. It's the children's, I'm assuming most of you will know, it's the children's I don't know why I think most of our fans listening to the podcast are not folk fans and are... You're not like our singing weekender people. You're of a different breed. I think a lot of people just had no idea, while a group of drunk lads were just shouting Balamori, Balamori, Archie Balamori, and then circling around Miles. I was doing a stand-up gig at a festival. The comedian and musician Gavin Osborne was curating it. He said he'd had a meal with some comedians, including Ellis James, who you may know, the Welsh comedian. And he said, "Oh yes, Ellis sends his best."
And you were like, "He knows who I am."
Well, yeah, because that's the weird thing. He just said it as if I would think that he knows who we are. But Ellis sends his best. So apparently he's a fan of the Young'uns as well. So I've never met Ellis James, but I have, as been discussed on a podcast, met John Robbins. Well, I've already explained this before, but what I meant to say to him upon meeting that I've listened to his podcast quite a bit. And so I hope... John Robbins does the podcast on 5 Live with Ellis James. What I wanted to say to him when we met, because we were doing a gig together, I wanted to say that I hope I don't forget that he is actually in the room and that I don't just assume it's a podcast and just go to the toilet and just leave the door open, just go to the toilet in front of him. But as has been established on other podcasts, my brain doesn't necessarily think linearly. And so my brain and mouth weren't necessarily in sync. And so essentially what I said to John Robbins was, "Oh, hello, John. I listened to the podcast. I just hope I don't go to the toilet in front of you." And then before I could try and explain the situation, the promoter of the gig then walked in and introduced themselves. That was the same gig that Fern Brady was on.
Yeah.
And I just spilled some coffee over me, and I didn't know whether you could see it or not. And I had to stop myself asking, the first thing I said to Fern Brady, because that was the first thing that was in my mind. I was like, oh, God, have I just spilled coffee all over my crotch? and I just had to stop myself. I fortunately did, greeting Fern Brady, who I've only met for the first time there, and say, oh, hello, Fern, would you mind having a look at my crotch? And then I said to John, I hope I don't go to the toilet in front of you. I mean... Oh, also in terms of celebrity Young'uns fans, we got an email that I just assumed was a spam email.
Yes.
We got an email from someone claiming to be George Ezra. I mean, firstly, we thought it was unlikely to be George. It just seemed a bit out of the blue, essentially. Why? Oh, yes, and Simon Webb as well. Got in touch with us. But that's another story. We're not really as interested about that. Simon Webb from Blue, by the way. I was going to go for Duncan. I thought Duncan was more famous. But then, weirdly, I couldn't remember Duncan's surname.
It's officially from Blue.
What do you mean?
Well, because...
Duncan from Blue?
Yeah, Duncan from Blue is his official name, whereas Simon Webb...
What is his official name?
Because, OK, so you weren't a teenage girl in the 90s and 2000s.
Well, no.
No.
Or even now. Ever been a teenage girl.
When you had, and I'm sure the listeners will back me up, when you had Smash Hits or Top of the Pops magazine, which was not just for girls, but still, everyone was known as, you might have Jerry Spice or Duncan from Blue or Danny McFly. You didn't need to learn these people's surnames because they were from Blue.
Well, Simon Webb.
But Simon Webb...
It wasn't Simon from Blue.
It was to start with, but then he had a solo career, so he had some hits.
Anyway, so we had a message from someone purporting to be George Ezra, and then he was offering us a gig, essentially. At first, we didn't believe him, but then having a bit of research on it, and our various people have said, this is definitely George Ezra. So we are doing a gig that George Ezra is putting on the 28th of February in Hertfordshire.
But he said he wanted to start doing more folk gigs, and you were at the top of the list.
Anyway, we best...
This was meant to be quick.
Yeah, I've heard her say that many a time. OK, off we go. January the 17th. So we're in the middle of a singing weekend, Saturday evening, just about to do our quiz. We always do a quiz on the Saturday night, and so I thought it might be quite fun to play you last year's quiz, or a part of last year's quiz, and see if you can work out the answers. And last year, the Bob Dylan film came out. So it was a Dylan-themed quiz, and one of the rounds was where I sang a song in the style of Bob Dylan. It's not a Bob Dylan song, it's a cover song, and you have to work out what song I am covering in the style of Bob Dylan. So we start with a couple in the style of old Dylan. And then as we go on, Bob Dylan's voice matures a little. It gets a bit more gravelly. It gets a bit deeper. And he moves from acoustic to electric. So it's all encompassed here. There's a lot of research has gone into this. And you'll hear that you'll be thinking, my goodness, David, how much do they pay for these singing weekends? Because the amount of time that you must have spent really honing the Dylan style. And I went around for a week and I refused. Like some method actors, I refused to talk in my own voice. I spoke in the style of Bob Dylan. And I didn't let anything get in my way. I take my job very seriously. On the Wednesday, I did have to do a eulogy at a funeral, and I did it in that voice. And I just had to pass it off as having a sore throat. And I think I got away with it. But people didn't quite understand. They said, what about the American accent? And I had to fob them off by saying, when I get particularly emotional, for whatever reason, I speak in an American accent. Can you work out what Bob Dylan is covering? So I'm going to play you the 5 songs that Bob Dylan is covering, starting with Old Dylan and moving to New. And then, after that, we'll go through it and I'll tell you the answers. What song is Bob Dylan covering? now move to New Dylan. That's New Dylan, not Nude Dylan, before you get your hopes up there. New Dylan, accompanied by his band Dylan and the Deaf. But what shoddily covered song is Bob Dylan doing? I'm crying. Then we leave the bell chime. Oh, driven from a dead dog dies. Rabbit like this, that thought I got to be that boy. You be the naughty girl, you let the niggas die. I hear the amen. I hear the amen. I hear the warriors. Good, 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 you. All right. What song is Bob Dylan covering? And suddenly Benny's always on the beat. And everybody, Benny is a treat. Blowing on the smiley, he never known the frown. And everybody said he is the heaviest What song is being covered? Hey, wanna be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. Stay in love forever, a friendship never ends. If you wanna be my lover, well, you have got to give. Taking it too easy, but that's the way that it is. What think about that? Now you know how I feel. I say you can't handle my love, you for real. And I don't go with that, my pleasure's time. But if you really put me, well, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. Okay, so there are the Bob Dylan covers. Let's go through them one more time, and this time I shall reveal the answers. Let's see how you did. Question 1. The song that Bob Dylan was covering was, of course, Black Lace, Agadoo. Song 2. That's not the answer, by the way. Doesn't sound like Blur. It's the Ying Tong song, The Goons. Song 3. The Beatles. I Am the Walrus. Song 4. The Laughing Policeman. And finally, Song 5. The Spice Girls. Wannabe. Well done, everybody. I say well done. I've absolutely no idea if you got any of them. Now, I better go down and actually spend some time with the people who have paid to spend a weekend with me. Unlike you lot, who are just listening to a podcast for free. You bastards.
January the 18th.
Well, my goodness, I've just come back from the Young and Singing weekend and checked my emails, and what do I find? I was telling you about getting the email from George Ezra and assuming that that was a fake, but it turned out not to be. It was a genuine email from George Ezra. Well, what should land in my inbox but an email from none other than Lou Bega. Lou Bega has emailed me. My goodness. So, last week, I was talking about Mambo No. 5, Lou Bega's hit song from 1999, and ruminating how Angela must have felt upon hearing her name top of the list of his women that he's been with, only to then hear another 3 or 4 women's names mentioned, and then immediately he says, and as I continue, you know they're getting sweeter, before he reels off a whole list of women in the chorus. So I was talking about that and imagining how Angela must have felt. Anyway, turns out, Lou Bega heard it. He was listening to the podcast himself. He's a fan of the David Eagle podcast. And he says, hello, David. Just a quick one. That's not a proposition, by the way. He says, I'm aware of my reputation. He's got a good sense of humour, as Lou Bega, it turns out. Big fan of the David Eagle podcast. He says, a friend turned me onto it because of my appreciation for herbal tea. I know I've got a reputation for drinking copious amounts of gin and beer, as of course I outlined in my song Mambo number 5. A quarter of a century later, I'm a completely different man. I think the time has come for me to unleash to the world my new song, Mambo number 6. I know that you have a history of previewing unhitherto released songs from pop artists. I am, of course, referring to Gina G. If you're not a regular listener to the podcast, you won't maybe be aware of a lot of this stuff, but I played the exclusive new song from Gina G. It's not been released, it's never been heard anywhere else, and we released it here on the David Eagle podcast. He says, I want you to do the same for me. I haven't finished the song yet, he says. It's still a work in progress, but I've made good progress. As a loyal and loving listener of the David Eagle podcast, I want to say thank you by giving you the exclusive first play of Draft 1 of my new song, Mambo number 6. Yours since Ely. I didn't know I'd seen you in Ely. Lou Bega, 27 years later, is back with a new song exclusive to the David Eagle podcast. This is Lou Bega, Mambo number 6. Ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary people, of course, Lou Bega's very inclusive and right on these days. Sorry, I digress. This is Mambo number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lou Bega's back with another of my hits. It's been nearly 30 years since last we spoke. So much has changed, I'm a very different bloke. I've left my womanizing ways behind. I don't care about their body, I wanna know their mind. Every woman that moved, I just wanted to hump it. But now I'd rather sit and play my trumpet. Yes, I've done a lot of self-improvement. I'm a really big fan of the Me Too movement. I don't like female objectification. I wanna get to know them and have a conversation. All of the girls mentioned in my last song, I still keep in touch with every single one. We just have a chat and that's that, there's no screwing. How about I tell you how they're doing? Monica is an entrepreneur. Erica's a philanthropic millionaire. Rita works in health and social care. Tina's an incredible photographer. Sandra is a nun. Mary's got a PhD in Carl Jung. Angela was Labour deputy. But then there was some faff about stamp duty. I'm playing the trumpet. Mambo number 6. When I think about the old me, it seems absurd. Nowadays I'd rather just do the crossword. If you offered me some liquor, I'd say no, not me. I'd rather have a cup of herbal tea. I like to feed the birds and pot around the garden. When I look at women now, I never get a hard on. You won't believe this, but just the other day, I actually discovered that I am in fact gay. My goodness. Lou, you've excelled yourself. What an update from Lou Bega. I don't know about you, I think that's better than the original. I think his voice has really come on a lot. Maybe he's had lessons or something, but that's very professional vocal delivery and such an interesting journey as well that you've been on. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. To me, this is the musical equivalent of Harper Lee. To Kill a Mockingbird came out in 1960, and then it was 55 years later that the second book came out. Lou Bega. Music's answer to Harper Lee. And I don't make statements like that lightly. And Lou, if you fancy being a guest on the singing weekend at some point, what a meet-up that would be. Miles Jupp, George Ezra, Justin Edwards, Lou Bega. If there are any other pop artists listening who have not released songs for a long time and they want to use the David Eagle podcast as a platform for airing their first drafts, we did it with Gina G, we've done it with Lou Bega. Who's going to be in touch with us next?
January the 19th.
So obviously a couple of days ago we came back from the Young and Singing weekend and Ellie had a chance. You said you spoke to Michael about this, but you didn't speak to Sean about it.
I didn't get
It's time for a Better Than a Bald Head update. So you've been talking about this. I said I got this from Sean and Michael. I know that Sean and Michael say better than a bald head, but everybody else that we have spoken to, they're not aware of this phrase, better than a bald head. I can only now think that Sean and Michael have made it up.
I said to Michael that we've put it on the podcast and it's not a thing, and he said it is a thing, and I said prove it. So he tried Googling it and there is nothing.
So where's it come from? Because if Sean thinks...
I think they've just misheard better a bald head than none at all.
But isn't it odd that both of them...
No, but if they started saying saying it to each other, because that's the sort of thing, like if you've known someone for 35 years or whatever, you're likely to have misheard things together.
If Sean and Michael think it's a phrase, I'm thinking, are they the only two who think it's a phrase?
I think they are the only two, that's why.
Or has this disseminated further? Do their family think it's a phrase? So the next stage is to ask Sean's dad. I think,
okay,
Sean's dad and Michael's mum.
Okay.
To see if they've heard the phrase better than Bald Head, because we need to see how far-reaching this is.
Okay.
We need to literally see if it stops at Sean and Michael and they have both misheard it together, or one of them's misheard it, one of them has then said it to the other one,
and they've
just gone, oh, that's a phrase. Then they've said it now and again. I've then heard it over the years, so occasionally I will say, well, better than a bald head. And that's how it's happened. Or if it's even more far-reaching and Sean's dad has said it to Sean, believing it's a phrase, there's still more investigating to do. There's more to be done on this. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear that I'm not the kind of person who just abandons the investigation there. It's going to be like one of those crime podcasts where they've not solved the mystery, and so it just eventually... I've heard a number of those things. Either an independent podcast or BBC Sounds or something, and it'll start out like, you will never believe this thing that happened, and then the next week is, and then there's more, and there's more, and there's more. They manage to catch up with where we are now.
Yeah.
And then there's literally nothing, and then they just eke it out by speaking to, like, a psychologist or, and what's your theory? And they'll just take audience...
Yeah, and it might have been like a 20-year case or something, and you think, oh, well, they must be talking about it now because
it's been solved.
But no.
And this is the problem. So I'm doing that. Anyway, we're doing that. So the better than a bald head mystery continues. If you're thinking, you can't keep up this pace, David, with revelations aplenty, you're quite right, but we'll eke it out. We'll maybe get a psychologist on, a lexiconologist, perhaps, who can talk about how these linguistic things get passed on from person to person.
Susie Dent, if you're listening, you are welcome on the podcast anytime.
Exactly. So I need to do a little advert for my Leicester Comedy Festival gig, David Eagle's Funny Flim Flam, on the 16th of February. I was about to get the accordion out to do my usual folk-based jingle, but my PR machine have been in touch and said, David, you've got the old people on side. You need to branch out to the youth demographic, and the best way to do that is through the medium of hip-hop. So here is a hip-hop jingle for the youth. If there are any youth listening, please do stay with me. I know you've got a low attention span. I said, I know you've got a low attention span. They did say, my PR machine, you need an air horn, but I don't have an air horn. Apparently that gets the crowd whipped up into a frenzy. But I do have the next best thing. The party hooter. All right, youth, please do check this out. People of Leicester, there's no need to fester, but come and be merry. 16th February, I've just done a series on Radio 4, but now I'm back with a brand new comedy show. Yo, people of Leicester, I don't mean to pester, but I must confess ya, it's not sold out yet, sir. I don't want to bleat on, cause I'm not a lamb, but come and see my show, David Eagle's Funny Flip Flam. They are, yes, my goodness, yet another genre well and truly conquered. All right, kids, how'd you like them apples? Just doing a little bit of street speak there. See you there, my friends. So I called Ellie up, who was on the way back from work, saying I need to record this video and I've had an idea. And I said, have you got access to Hooters, to party Hooters? Have you got access to party Hooters? Do you know have we got any party Hooters at home? And we didn't. So you went on a bit of a party Hooter search.
I did. And you know what? They're really difficult to come by. I went to 3 stores and the third one had it. And I was sort of chatting to the ladies behind the till, Harley and Shell. And I said, they're really tricky to find. They went, we haven't had them for ages. I said, it's for a weird little video that my husband's decided to do.
So they did have them?
Yeah, they had them. So
right.
And
so there's been a shortage, maybe?
Perhaps there's been a shortage.
Something else to investigate, everybody. Another cold case.
And I said, it's for a video he's making. They're like, oh, what's he do? I said, oh, he's a comedian. Like, what's his name? So I said, David Eagle. And they're like, oh, I've heard of him. He's good. It's like, do you think he'd do a shout out on the video? I said, well, I don't know about on the ad, but I can put it in the comments.
We can put it in the comments. We've put it in the podcast. So shout out to Harley and Shell at
Card Factory in Hillsborough.
Let's just, have we got the party Hooter there so we can...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's on the recording. So actually, why am I doing this? No, I was going to say so that people can hear what the Hooter sounds like, so they can sort of try before you buy almost. But they've already heard what the Hooter sounds like.
Yeah.
Because it's on the advert, so that was absolutely pointless.
Here's your Hooter. Oh, you know what? You blew your Hooter. Mm-hmm. so enthusiastically in that ad. There's a little hole in it now. I don't know if you've...
that really doesn't sell. It's not doing anything.
It's not because...
Hang on, give it to me. You can't do it.
Why is that okay?
Every time Ellie blows a hooter...
This is weird. OK,
Ellie can't handle a hooter.
Fresh hooter.
So that's me. Oh, she's done it. Right, so the game is... Bear in mind, I've got one with a hole on here. You have to say who can get the highest hooter.
Oh.
So, let's see. So, this is my note. That's rubbish, that one. Okay, 1-0 to you. Best of 3. I've done it again! So you're doing a terrible lacklustre one, but I'm aiming for high, and you're winning. Right, here we go.
Ooh.
See, you haven't changed your note once.
Oh, now it's not even
Try
doing it.
tightening my lips and seeing if I can... Yes! I think I've won that. Anyway.
It's so weird that we just sat home with party hooters.
Well, what's even more weird is we're recording.
I know.
You can't even make the noise now.
No.
Mine's got a hole in my hooter. I've got a hole in my hooter. You give me...
OK.
Give me no.
I'll fresh one. There you go.
Okay,
I'm going to do
This is a new... So I've been working with a handicap hooter. Right, here we go. So I've got a new weapon.
OK. I'm going to try 2 at once.
Oh.
Well, that's disappointing.
You can't... When she said 2 at once, I thought you were putting both in your mouth. You want to know what she's doing here, isn't it? Right. Let's leave it there. Well, there you go. Holly and Shell. I'm sure you're pleased with that, you know, and we're not charging anything for that.
January the 20th.
Some people get a thrill from deviant crime. I would rather play a game where I guess the time. I don't want to be embroiled in matters illegal. I'd rather play a game of What's the Time, Mr. Eagle.
Regular podcast listeners and the David Eagle podcast listeners of old will remember our feature, What's the Time, Mr. Eagle? You'll never guess what I had to do. Ellie would ask me what the time was. I had to guess the time. For those people who hadn't listened and you're thinking, when did the quality let up, David? Because, you know, you clearly had something back then. I can see why Bega listened. I'm sorry. I'll try and think of a feature as good as What's the Time, Mr. Eagle. It will be difficult. We had some classics, didn't we? Potato news, which is just monitoring the growth of our potatoes. That's not a euphemism. Anyway, I'm sure many are getting excited, assuming that it's a resurgence of the feature, What's the Time, Mr. Eagle, but unfortunately not. I think we peaked with that feature. I think doing it again will just be rehashing old ground. We need to move on. We need to move forward. Yes, we may never reach those heights, but I must try, listeners. I must try. However, I thought it was apposite to play the What's the Time, Mr. Eagle jingle because I'm going to play you a little clip from my stand-up gig. I was doing a solo stand-up gig in Langport, in a bakery in Langport in Somerset. I've been speaking to my people this year and had a bit of a chat with them. And they said, where do you want to go with your career, David? Live at the Apollo, TV panel shows? And I said, I want to stop you there. I want to dream big. I want to be doing the Somerset bakery circuit. That's how I want to earn me crust. The point is, I did a gig in a bakery. I'm hoping it'll lead to more gigs in bakeries in Somerset. I think this one went pretty well, so I've got high hopes. It was going well, but then I got a bit confused about the time, as you'll hear in this clip, as we head to Langport Bakery in Somerset. I say in Langport Bakery, I think there's more than one, but now that I've done it, the other bakeries in Langport, they might as well just give up. That's why I'm not saying the name of the bakery. I'm doing it for their benefit. They actually asked me not to. They said, David, we don't just want people making a pilgrimage and just turning up and just gawping and not actually buying anything. You know, we've got a loyal customer base. We want to keep our customer base. We don't want people not being able to get their bread because they're just inundated with people standing outside, gawping, taking photos, you know, asking customers questions. Were you there on that night? As agreed, I've not said the name of the bakery, so I'm just calling it the Langport Bakery. Anyway, the point is, I've done a gig. Here's a clip. On this phone, it talks to me. And please tell me everyone else can hear that. It's just, maybe it doesn't talk to me. It has a screen on it, but I've got the screen turned off. And often, if I'm on the bus or the train or whatever, and I'm just tapping away at my phone, doing something on it, there's a couple of times that people have come up to me and went, it's not switched on, mate. And I'm like, it is. And they're like, no, it's not, mate. It's nothing. There's nothing on the screen. They won't believe me. And what do they think I'm doing? But But it makes me wonder about the people who don't come up and say anything. Do they just look at me and they just see this man, this blind man, just tap on the phone? They go, oh, look at the simple blind man there, you know. It's like... And I used to have before I had a phone with an old, it had like a cracked screen on it. And it probably wouldn't be very usable by someone who could see, but it was fine for me because I don't need to see the screen. So I was just using it. But I thought that people obviously just assumed that, oh, that's really nice. Someone's obviously given the simple blind man a knackered old cracked screen phone. And he's just pretending that he's just acting like he's a normal person. Who knows what's going on in his head? You know, now and again he'll just say, hello, and pretend to have a phone conversation. Pretending to be a grown-up. I realise I'm checking the time, which is all very well and good, but I should have made a note of what time I went on. Otherwise, it's 33 minutes past 9. I don't know what that means to anyone. What time did I... So we finished... 7:30?
It's when we started.
When we restarted? What? Are you just desperate for me to go? No, hang on. No, I know we started at 7:30, but if you're forgetting, we've had an interval since then. I'm resetting the time for the next block of 45. Sorry, I don't know why I'm having to go at you. It's clearly my own professionalism, and I'm going, oh, you fools! Excellent. Well, I think that's all we've got time for. Good night. We started at 7:30, and that took us to about 8:20. I think I came back on at 8:45, didn't I? So it's now 33 minutes past. So that means I've done 48 minutes? 49 minutes by the time I met. Is that right? It's 45. I mean, most people were thinking, actually, David, just go as long as you like, because we are really enjoying it, until this point where you start talking about how long you've done. But I think I started back again at 7:15. Does that mean have I done 50 minutes already?
Well, 14 no, 48.
Have done how many?
10.
Right, there was a time at one of the gigs, and I didn't feel it was necessarily going as well as other gigs had. And I said, how long have I done? And he went, oh, just do another 5 minutes. And I said, is that because have I done 45? And he went, oh, yeah, you have. And then I turned to him and I said, you do realise I'm recording this gig so I can find out for later? He went, oh, do another 15. Like, how brazen. What time did I start? Who knows? Alan, what time did I start? Oh, well. That fills me with a lot of confidence. Thanks a lot, Alan. Right. Brilliant. Well, I think it's probably time to sort of conclude. It's really odd. I have done so many... Well, I'll tell you what, we could just pontificate about... Oh, yeah, I'll do another song. Yeah. Don't talk anymore. Do another song. Excellent. Actually, do an instrumental, David. Another bit of Mike Oldfield, and then we'll all go home. A song or a poem? A poem. Oh, yeah, sorry, you probably can't understand what I'm saying. You're probably thinking I'm saying a perm. Is he going to do some hairdressing? Who'd like a blind man to try and cut their hair?
January the 21st.
OK, I don't know what's going on, but Ellie has just returned back from work. She's just entered the house and she's absolutely brimming with... But we'll clean that up a little bit later on. But she's very excited about something. Apparently you've had a little meeting in the street.
Well, normally it's you that gets...
Oh, you met Norma Lee. Oh, I met her. She's a lovely woman. Continue, Ellie.
Usually, it's you that gets stopped in the street. As I was walking back in the dark, I walked past someone and they went, Ellie! Oh, it is you! And it was Elizabeth who has commented on the post about the podcast, and she reiterated to me in the street that she's really enjoyed listening to it. She thinks you're very funny, and she thinks that my descriptions of what's going on in the world are very good, and it means that it's like being actually there.
What's going on in the world? What do you mean? So is she blind?
No.
All right, I see.
But she's listening to an audio thing, so she doesn't know where we are. So me describing the scene for you And often I do that,
That's
obviously.
a good point, because you'd have to do that for the listeners, but at the same time, because you're naturally doing it for me, it gives you a proclivity for describing things.
Yeah. I've had lots of practice audio describing passive-aggressive people on the tram to you and that sort of thing. So,
Yes, I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast, but Ellie will often, if there is somebody that is annoying her, she will exact her frustrations and want the person to deliberately hear, but she'll pass it off as if she's not talking to them and being passive-aggressive. She's actually just audio describing to me what's going on. So she's like, we can't move forward at the moment, David, because there's someone in the way who's blocking our path and taking up quite a lot of room with their luggage rather than putting it on the...
Especially if they've put their luggage in the spot that's there for a wheelchair user.
OK, so let's hope she hasn't followed you home, Ellie. As we say, we do have some very loyal podcast fans.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been brilliant if she was listening to the podcast at the time? So that she was listening to us speaking, she heard your voice, and then she suddenly saw you.
Well, what she said that she hadn't realised is that you've been podcasting for quite a long time. So she's now going through the back catalogue.
Well, there we go. Excellent. Elizabeth hasn't, because that hasn't quite been released yet, she hasn't got to the flatulent episode. Will that be...
That's the step too far.
That's a step too far. Maybe that's when your proclivity for describing things accurately and in detail went a little bit too far, perhaps.
So today at work, I've been researching the history of our building and who might have worked there, and it's also going to be a music centre. So I thought, I wonder if there's some musical connections. And then somebody from an archive has emailed me saying that Joe Cocker, the musician, used to work for the Gas Board in the 60s. And I got quite excited about that because I thought, Joe Cocker, musician and gas man, we should get in touch with him and get his memories. And I suggested that to my manager. And then I looked up Joe Cocker's Wikipedia page and realised he died 12 years ago.
But you still could.
We could get in touch with... we could get a Ouija board.
We could get Sam back. He wasn't massively successful last time. No disrespect, Sam. But Sam the medium, we could see what he can do. OK, so last week we put an appeal out for swingers. This week... I was talking about on the podcast, not in our personal lives. This week, we need a medium to get in touch with Joe Cocker. Well, we might get by with a little help from our friends. Have we got some mediums listening? So there we go. Something to look forward to, everybody. I find the whole thing about Ouija boards very interesting because there's a lot of people who don't believe in that kind of thing. But it's one of those areas where they wouldn't do it out of fear. So even though they would go, it's all nonsense, ghosts are nonsense and all of that kind of thing and mediums are nonsense, I think the Ouija board is one of those very odd sticking points where people just go, I'm not going to do it because I've heard about someone who did something and then this thing happened and I've heard this story. And everyone's got their own story and you go, but I thought you were like a hardened skeptic. And for whatever reason, it's the Ouija board that seems to be the sticking point. Yes. Actually, you don't want a sticking point in a Ouija board because that will interfere with the...
Also, what if the person you're trying to contact was dyslexic?
Oh, yeah. But are they still dyslexic in the spirit world? That's the question. We need an expert. I wonder if Sam has got any better since the last time we... Because the last time we spoke to Sam, formerly of the Hut People, and then he stopped playing the accordion in the wonderful group The Hut People and concentrated on being a psychic medium. And it's a fascinating discussion that we had with him, but when we spoke to him and I said, are you getting anything related to me? He just said, you're going to have some nice meals. Which, in fairness, Ellie is a very good cook, but... I think he could have got that from my Instagram. But I am fascinated about the whole thing because I don't think Sam would deliberately do it like as a fraudulent thing. So I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, I don't know. I find the whole thing absolutely fascinating. But it's time for us to give up the ghost for this week. We'll be back next week.
Who knows what will have happened because we don't know yet.
Well, obviously not.
No.
What a silly comment to make. What do you mean? Of course we don't. Unless, of course, we get in touch with Sam the medium.
We've not got anything planned. Like, we've not got another holiday planned where there would be something to talk about. We're just plodding along in life.
Excellent. Well, if you'd like to hear us, tune in, my friends. Make sure that you listen to us plodding along with, we should just call it the Plodcast, the David Eagle Plodcast. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.